All right, welcome everybody to another exciting edition of Behind the Screen. My name is Johnny Omaha, and today we've got a super special guest. I'm so excited. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bill Allan. Bill, how are you?
I'm doing great, Johnny.
Oh
Thanks.
my gosh. Bill, this is like, I don't know if I've already peaked. I mean, this is the second recording we've ever done, and I think we may have just set the bar here. So, Bill,
Well,
you've
my
been on,
pleasure.
yeah, thank you. So you've been doing this for a while. So for people that might not be familiar with you and your channel, why don't you just take a second to introduce yourself?
Okay, so I'm Bill Allan, and I started playing role-playing games when I was 5 years old. My older brother was in junior high, and he had some friends that taught him Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. He came home and taught me, and I was so young that I didn't even know how to write, so he drew out my first character on a note card, just super basic, and just ran adventures for me. So I've been playing role-playing games almost all my life. That same brother got into video when he was in high school, and that was in the early 80s. So video cameras and VCRs and stuff weren't even that common. But he saved up. He worked at Jewel Osco, and he saved up money, and he bought a real video camera,
Wow.
and he would shoot videos with his friends, just dumb videos, or he'd go shoot like bands and stuff. And I was basically his camera bitch. Like I carried his because in that time you had the camera with a separate deck, like a
Yeah,
VCR. So
massive.
he had this bag, and I carried the camera bag, and I just I basically like was his production assistant. And I learned a little bit about video and stuff. So fast forward, that was like when I was about 10 years old. So basically, I've been doing games and video for almost all my life. In high school, I did more with video. I continued playing games. In college, I ended up changing my major to photo and film and video, and worked in the Chicago film industry for a few years. Then I worked in the Chicago television industry for a few years, and then I went back to school to be a high school teacher. And as luck, fate, or God's will have it, I ended up becoming the teacher for the media program at my old high school. So
No way.
I basically have the dream job that comes full circle. I get to teach the next generation of film and video and television kids at my old high school with a robust program. We have an incredible facility. I mean, we have a studio, we have a production truck. There are colleges that don't even have what we have. We have an
Wow.
amazing, fully charged lab. So I am blessed because I basically have a great job, and I'm also like the coach who gets to suit up and play the game,
Yes.
because we do over 100 productions a year, and I am often working on the crew, not just like directing or producing.
Right.
I'll pick up wherever, whenever I'm short on crew. I might be doing camera, I might be running back and forth, I might be doing replay or graphics or directing, whatever it takes. So it's kind of amazing to me, actually. I've been doing this for 18 years, and it never gets old. I love my job.
Oh my God.
I have had generation of my former students, my kids, who are now working successfully in the industry, in
Mm.
film, in television, in animation, what have you. And it's awesome. They're like my family. So how did this all connect? I had been doing a show with a friend of mine, Brian Thomas, in our studio here, and he was also an employee at the school. And it was like an actual play of his D&D campaign. And we had been shooting like over the weekend, and I left like all the minis and terrain and books and dice out on the table. I was just too tired to clean it all up. Came in, and the students, it was like 2 weeks before the end of the semester. It was like December. And the advanced students had been slacking. They hadn't been doing their projects. So they saw all this stuff, and they're like, "Mr. Allan, what is that?" I was like, "It's Dungeons and Dragons game." They're like, "Could like so is it a game? Like, why is it in the studio?" I was like, "Well, we were basically playing the game and like filming it, And I showed them some like examples. And they're like, that's awesome. Can we do that for our final project? And I was like, no, you lazy bastards. Because they're basically trying to grub for an easy
It's all set
project.
up. It's all set up. We
Yeah.
can just play and go.
So then I thought about it and I said, you know what? Actually, yes, but you have to do all the studio lighting. You have to do the cameras.
Yep.
You have to crew everything. You have to produce it. And they're like, all right, fine. So we did this literally. I mean, like these are kids who never played D&D before, never played any role-playing games before.
Yeah.
I had about 15 minutes before we started rolling to explain the basics of the game. Even then, they didn't get it. I mean, it's, me explaining how a game works to a bunch of people who've never played a game. And then while doing that live, we recorded the sessions. It ended up being 4 sessions. I put them on my YouTube channel, which at that time, really, my YouTube channel was just like a depository for anything that I was interested in.
Yeah. And Bill, what is your YouTube channel for people that might be watching?
It's everything that I do is under my name. It's Bill Allan World. And that, was Bill Allan World, not because I'm a narcissist, but because I didn't know what to call it, because it wasn't just gaming stuff. Like I had gotten into terrain for gaming, right? Like Dwarven Forge. So I had some unboxing videos, and then I that stuff's really expensive. So I got into terrain crafting, like the whole crafting community and building dungeon tiles and ruins and, stuff that you could put on your tabletop. And that was part of my channel. But, there's just random stuff on there. I put it all on the channel.
Quick question about the channel. Like, so
Yeah.
you went with your real name, right? I
Yeah.
mean, how do you, I guess, balance that nowadays? Would you recommend that people are using names? Would you rather do kind of pseudonyms, or what would you do now today?
I mean, that was probably my dumbest move. But then again, I'm also like a public high school employee. So if anybody wanted to like look me up, they're going to look me, like all my stuff is online. You know what I mean? It's all public. So
do you think it helps you hold yourself to a higher standard, knowing that
I guess, look, I mean, the thing is like, I'm not perfect. I would say I'm a pretty normal dude. I make mistakes in my life, just like anyone. But I try not to be a jerk. So, so far so good, I guess. I don't know. But the truth is like what I do is it's a passion. I've loved role-playing games all my life. So to be able to do content related to role-playing games is just it's fun for me, and I have come over the years to understand that it's informative and entertaining for other people too, I guess. So
absolutely.
That is I guess the benefit, but when I posted that first season, the 4 episodes, I just thought it'd be something cool for people to see. And then we went on winter break. I come back 2 weeks later and there are a lot of views, like tens of thousands of views. I'm like, this is insane. Like I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And then I don't know what happened. Like somebody must have posted it on a Reddit or something, but it just started to blow up. And people were like commenting, like, when's season 2? I'm like, season 2? I'm like, this is a fucking joke. Like, it's not even real. Like, there's no season 2. Well, supply and demand, like people wanted it. And then the kids in the next semester was like, hey, are we going to do a D&D thing? I was like, I guess, like there's no plan. There was no plan. Like some people accuse Critical Role of being scripted. I'm like, I definitely wasn't scripted. I just made that just, like I don't even know if there'd be another season if it wasn't for the fact that the kids wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, we did another season. And then a lot of those kids were graduating. So we did like a summer sessions thing before they went off to college.
Yep.
And then the next school year started and we did a season 3. And that was huge. And things kept blowing up. Season 4 was so big that I had 2 different casts. So season 4 was actually 2 shows. And I didn't plan it this way. I distinctly had 2 shows because I was like, I can't run a game with 11 people or whatever it was. You know what I mean? Like, I had the Vixens and the Medusas, and scheduling wise, I couldn't have all 11 of them at the table, even if I could handle 11 people in a game. So we had two different casts. What happened was this amazing thing where those two casts came together at the end. That it was like what you would hope it would be, like this epic thing,
It's like
right?
the Avengers,
Yes.
like they each had their movie and then boom, coming
And
together.
that happened despite COVID, because season 4 was the COVID year. We started that game in the fall of 2019, those games with the Vixens and the Medusas, and we finished it on Zoom. In fact, that is why I have the pro Zoom account, was because we had to finish the show.
Wow.
And it was epic. Then it took a little while for season 5, but season 5 happened. Season 5 ended, and Wizards of the Coast did their thing with the OGL.
Yeah. So this was
that's when right. Then I was like, I'm kind of done with Wizards of the Coast, or at least with Hasbro running Wizards of the Coast. And I said this before on video publicly. I'll say it here. I have fundamental problems with that company and how they did things, not with the people who work there. I have talked to and met in person many of the people from Wizards of the Coast, and they're fine folks. I have worked as a video producer and director with many of the people from Wizards of the Coast at conventions where we do the video. Those are fine people. Okay. Yeah. So my issues with D&D is the company, the direction the company has taken, and the actions of the company, which I think is what brings us to what we're watching on this side screen. How did I get into Castles and Crusades?
That's right. It was a great introduction to Castles and Crusades.
Yeah. It was not an easy journey. I'll tell you, Johnny, it was, like many people, I felt betrayed because for years, I mean, dude, I have a tattoo of the D&D ampersand on my arm. Like, I love Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
It's a big part of my life. And no matter what Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro does to that game, I will still love it because, we have many editions of that game that you could play, that you could go back to and play the game that you want to play, regardless of the company.
That's right. That's right. They can't take the sky from you, Bill.
That's right. That said, I was on a quest because I put my money where my mouth is, and I stopped buying Wizards of the Coast products.
Yep.
And I got into some of the OSR games. I started playing Lamentations of the Flame Princess even before the OGL thing. But I was curious. People had recommended other games. I went deep. I went to Tunnels and Trolls, which is has been around since the 70s. It was kind of one of the first D&D early knockoffs. Oh gosh, what's it called? Dragonbane, which was the Scandinavian version of D&D because they didn't have it translated into their own Swedish, into the Swedish. They came up with Demons and Dragons. Dragons and Demons, I think it's called in Swedish. And that was too scary, for the normal white people in America. So they changed it to, Dragonbane. But it's basically, another rules light kind of D&D-ish game. Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Yep.
Basic fantasy role-playing, old school essentials. All these different games. Crimson Dragon Slayer and Advanced Crimson Dragon Slayer and just Dragon Slayer. There's all these games that just are basically fantasy RPGs.
Yeah, you ran the gambit, Bill.
I was on the quest, man. I'm trying to find, what is a good way for me to do this.
Yep,
the
to
problems,
scratch that itch.
Yes. The problems with a lot of the OSR, old school revival, old school Renaissance games, or retro clones, is that a lot of them were still too crunchy. They were too.
Yep.
They relied on advanced D&D or basic D&D, and they were kind of crunchy and had weird rules that just made it the game experience not fun for me. Or they were too light on rules, they were too basic, and it would be fun for a game or two, but then for a long running campaign, you're like, well, where's this going?
Right.
Where does this allow for character development and leveling up and because players want to play and they want to level up. They want to have something that signifies their character getting experience, right? And
Right.
becoming better.
So you're kind of in a Goldilocks position here. This one's a little too firm. This one's a little too soft.
Yes.
You're trying to find the perfect game for you.
And I think I found that with Castles and Crusades. So why? First of all, I think Castles and Crusades is familiar enough to anyone who's played any edition of D&D to be able to pick it up quickly. So in other words, familiarity is one big part.
Mm-hmm.
I think mechanics are fantastic.
Yeah.
I feel like Castles and Crusades took some of these streamlined ideas of making a D20 system that where rolling high is good.
Yep.
Rolling high is the success, where all of your checks are made with that D20. So it's not, some of the retro clones were harkening back to like original D&D or basic D&D or advanced D&D, where some things were D20 and then sometimes you'd roll a D6 and then sometimes it was percentile. Like, no, just make it one way to resolve everything, right?
Right.
Castles and Crusades did that.
Yep.
You roll a D20, you decide, whether that's successful or not based on the D20 results, plus or minus modifiers, etc. Right? We'll get into the siege engine in a minute. But familiarity, streamlined, easy to use mechanics. A system that wasn't unnecessarily clunky in terms of proficiencies. You don't have a whole list of skills and proficiencies. It's just based on the core 6 ability scores. You as a player say what you want to do. The DM or castle keeper decides, roll your D20, add or subtract your modifiers. If it's a primary, add in your, etc. And then that determines whether you succeed or not. It's fast. It keeps the game moving, right?
Yep. And flexible too. Instead of like, give me a streetwise or give me a da-da-da-da.
Right.
Or even like Call of Cthulhu. Like when you talk about attributes of Call of Cthulhu, fantastic fun game for folks that are looking for it. But like there's like 30 different attributes, like bookkeeping. Like it's like an actual class there. Just, but anyway, it bucketizes them into the abilities.
Yes. And really, because when you think about it, that's all it comes down to.
Yep.
Anything that you as your player want your character to do, you're just deciding what ability score would most likely resolve that task. And then you make a roll. And it's always a roll with a D20, and you're always hoping to roll high, not roll low, not a D6. So it's that streamlined, solid mechanics. The advantage to leveling up is clear when you pick your character class, because you see what you get, quote unquote, when you're leveling up. And it's nothing complicated. There aren't like hundreds of feats that you have to choose from. There aren't proficiency bonuses. You're not, in a lot of ways, I love it also because it prevents people who are optimizers and min-maxers from building out these crazy, insane builds.
Yeah.
If you make a human fighter and I make a human fighter and we had the exact same numbers on our ability scores, we're not going to be all that different mechanically. I can't min-max my character more than you can. So what does it come down to? It comes down to how you play the game.
Yes.
That's what it's always been about. That's what it should be about, right?
Yes.
So all of these things came to me as I discovered Castles and Crusades. I'm like, this is the system that provides the right balance between enough to give you endless campaign potential. They go up to level 24. So if that's not enough, I don't know what is. It scales really well. The mechanics are easy. They're not cumbersome.
Yeah.
The books and the design themselves are wonderful and easy to navigate. It's easy to make characters. You can make characters in under 10 minutes, like that.
Yep.
Roll your dice, assign your stuff, done. Go shopping.
You even do. I love some of these videos where you actually roll up a character in less than 10 minutes. It's fantastic.
Well, and that's, yes, thank you for that. But and also bear in mind, I'm explaining what I'm doing. So If
Yep.
I just had like a timer right now and I was like, here's my dice, here's my character sheet, I'd have a character done in 3 minutes.
Yeah. So,
Well,
Bill, I love.
all right, it might be 8 minutes,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? Like it's fast. Like
Yeah.
whereas like if I was building a character in D&D 5e
Oh,
and I wanted that character to be good, it might take me a half an hour. And
and
that's me. Like I've built thousands of characters and it still might take me a half an hour.
half hour and a subscription service. But before
Yes.
we get into that, it sounds like you found the game for you, Bill. And so now I've got this passion, but you have this audience in this school group. So how do you equip a school group with the amount of books? Because not everybody's going to be sharing one book. Talk to me. How did it transfer from you found the game for you, and now how do we get that now into the school setting?
Johnny, I'm going to give you a tale that you're going to think that it's BS. You're going to think that it's not true, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Okay.
Okay. I want to hear the truth.
So in 2019, fall of 2019, the beginning of that school year, this is pre-COVID, had a group of kids who wanted to start up a D&D club. They came to me because they went to our director of student activities who approves clubs.
Yep.
And he was like, oh, talk to Mr. Allen. He's like a big D&D guy. So they come to me and they're like, hey, we want to start up a D&D club. Will you be our sponsor? I was like, no, that's dumb. Go join the board game club. Play D&D there.
Oh, because you guys had a.
So they go to the board game club. They come back to me a couple weeks later. We went to board game club. They're board game nerds. They don't want to play D&D. You start up the D&D club. I'm like, no, go to Friday Night In. So every Friday at our student union, they have like open hangouts for every student and it's free. You could do whatever you want. And it's just a big space, right? Yeah. They go, there was like one D&D game there and they weren't being very welcoming. So they come back to me again. Finally, I'm like, all right, fine. We'll start up a D&D club. So we start up a D&D club and there was like 10 kids at first.
Mm-hmm.
Well, week after week, word spread, kids were having fun, and it got up to like 25 kids.
Holy
and
cow.
that's when COVID came.
Oh, geez.
COVID came, school got shut down.
Yeah.
The kids came to me, they're like, Mr. Allen, what are we going to do? We can't meet in person. And I said, well, play online. And they're like, okay, so, and then they started up a Discord. They're like, we started up a Discord. Do you want to be the administrator? I was like, no, I don't. I was like, you guys just administrate your own thing. I don't have to have anything to do with that, and game on. So they did. Fast forward, we come back from COVID. In that, whatever it was, 6 months of, remote learning hell, the kids got up to 11 concurrent campaigns.
What?
And when we came back, we had 40 kids. It got up to 60 kids a week. 60. Now I had a shortage of DMs. I had a shortage of books and dice.
Yeah.
I went and bought.
You must have a mini convention going on there, Bill.
Yes.
I mean, that's insane.
Yeah. All 4 grades. Just they kept coming, right?
Wow.
I went to our local game store, our friendly local game store, Fair Game in LaGrange. And I said, I need supplies for our D&D club.
Yeah.
They said, we will sell them to you at wholesale. That's how nice.
Wow.
So I bought a stack of players' handbooks.
Yep.
A couple DM's guides, a couple monster manuals, a couple of the other 5th edition books, a bunch of dice, some DM screens, and like spell cards. Basically, I bought $700 worth of stuff, and it outfitted our club with all the things that we needed.
And was forward, 5th edition, Bill, that you purchased all this?
Yes. So this is like 2020, 2021.
Yep. This was before the purge.
Right. So things are going well. The club's thriving. We even got, accepted as like an official club.
Oh, wow.
Which is cool, because that means I got a stipend for babysitting kids to play D&D for, every week. And I even have an assistant. That's how many kids we're juggling. So my assistant Greg and I are happy to report that this many years later, the club is still going strong. I have tried to encourage kids to try other games. Mm-hmm. So I have kids running some different campaigns, it's still the D&D club because that's the majority of what
Sure.
kids are playing.
Like the Xerox and Kleenex
Yes,
club.
yes, exactly. But they are playing different games, which I'm encouraged. And anytime I have a chance to run stuff, I will often run games, which is how we get to Castles and Crusades. So after the OGL scandal, I went on hiatus. I didn't run anything for over a year. I was at one of our club events. Pause, rewind. I was on the quest, right? Looking for different games because I wasn't going to run D&D.
That's right.
I wasn't going to give WotC any of my money anymore. I knew the guys at Castles and Crusades. I knew them from Gen Con. I knew them from GaryCon. And I thought to myself, like, maybe that's a game that would work. I don't know anything about it, but I know a lot of the people in my sphere in the gaming community respect it. I emailed them, like literally a customer service generic email. And I was like, hey, I'm the advisor for a gaming club here at a high school. Do you guys have any discounts, like educational discounts? Because a lot of companies will give like 10% off. I wasn't expecting wholesale like Fair Game gave us, but like, I thought maybe 10% off and we could buy some of their books and maybe I could get the kids involved in this. They responded pretty quickly and they said, we do have educational discounts. Could you send us some links to like prove that your club is real? I was like, absolutely. So I did. I sent them a link to the school's website where our club page is, my email address for the school, showed them our club, PDF, basically like our bylaws.
Your charter.
Yeah. Literally not even a week. Johnny, 3 days later, I get an email that says, Mr. Allen, thank you for reaching out. Troll Lord Games is going to send you a link shortly for some PDFs that you will be able to download and share with the students in your club, as well as some physical items to your shipping address. Thank you for supporting Troll Lord Games.
That's nice.
Like, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like some collectible swag, right?
Yeah. Like a pin or some stickers.
Johnny, I got a heavy box. I got the PDFs, but I also got a heavy box. And in that heavy box was a $400 bundle of Castles and Crusades books.
Holy cow.
I have 5 players' handbooks, 2 or 3 DM's guides, and 2 or 3 Monsters and Treasure books, and 2 screens. And I can't remember the name of it, but like the starter adventure pack.
Yeah.
The PDFs had all of that and other things like maps and tokens.
Yeah.
Basically $400 for free.
For free?
They sent it to the club. So
holy crap.
I brought this box with me.
Yeah.
To a club meeting. And the kids are like, what's that, Mr. Allen? What is that? I was like, it's a new game, guys. I'm like, I'm literally unboxing it. They're like, can we play it? And I was like, yeah, why not?
Let's do this.
Like, get some paper out. I passed out the players' handbooks. Now, mind you, I had never opened these books.
Yeah.
I passed them out to the kids. I had 6 kids at a table and me. We're glancing through the books, looking at classes, looking at races. We looked at the books for about 10 minutes. I go, everybody know what they want to make? They go, yeah. All right, get your dice out. We're rolling up characters. We rolled up characters, went shopping. Everybody had their characters made in about 10 minutes. And I ran an adventure off the cuff that we played for 2 hours. The kids had an absolute blast. And when we were cleaning up, they said, Mr. Allen, when are we playing next?
Oh, yes.
Now, if that doesn't tell you,
wow,
you got a table with freshmen through senior high school kids who, for the first time, opened these books, played a game, and they said they're hungry for more.
Yeah,
that to me, that was the final sign. As if the free $400 bundle wasn't enough. That was the sign.
That was it.
A couple other random comments.
Yeah.
Harris, who's on the show, he was looking through the spells, and he
Oh.
said, he's like, I love these spells. I love how these spells work. He's like, this is awesome. Like, he's like, this is better than D&D. And this is a kid who has been playing D&D for a few years and who is a really good dungeon master.
Yeah.
A kid who was on season 5 when we were playing D&D with high school students using 5e. A kid who built a super ultra optimized character because he's smart and he knows how to do that.
Yeah.
But he's also a good role player. And for him to look at a game like Castles and Crusades and not think that it's, you know, vanilla or rules light, but actually think it's robust and gives him a lot of creative juices
Right.
to think about builds for characters.
Wow.
He ends up making a druid in the show.
Okay.
So Harris ends up making a druid. Lee ends up making a fighter. Fenn ends up making a rogue. And then Connor ends up making an illusionist. I cannot tell you, I think the last time that I had a makeup of a party like that it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Like, I think season 4 was the last time I had something remotely like that. Maybe even season 3.
Where it just
so
where it wasn't just
they
some
made what
out
they
there.
wanted to make.
Yeah. Well, and I think you kind of make the funny thing about that is I think you maybe poke fun at that a little bit with the intro to season 6, where everyone, which I love, by the way, which I gotta start this over so people can see the intro here. So here I'm gonna will you watch this with me, Bill?
Yes. Absolutely.
All right, here we go. So we're watching the.
Okay, so one time that me and my party ended up fighting a god that had like an elk skull.
So guys, what characters do we want to play for season 6?
I want to be a sleep paralysis demon that's addicted to pizza rolls.
I want to play a druid that's stuck as an iguana that's stuck in a mech suit.
I want to be a custom lineage assassin, gloomstalker, vengeance paladin, multi-class with the tough feat.
I want to be a human fighter.
Fools.
Oh.
Stop the beat. Baller. Look at that. That's a killer intro.
Thanks, man. Yeah. So full disclosure, I don't know actually. No, this might be the first time I've explained this publicly.
Oh my gosh. I like exclusives here on Behind the Screen.
I'm pretty sure that this is exclusive, with the exception of my patrons on Patreon.
Oh, Bill, before you tell us the exclusive, tell us about your Patreon.
Okay, well, I started up the Patreon basically because I needed a little help financially, for me to take the time to make all the content that I make, and I think I make a lot of content.
You do.
For me to do that, and also to frequently buy Carafa lunch because he helps me with everything. The Patreon was basically set up truly for those people who just wanted to go that extra step and help support the channel. So it's been running for a few years, and my patrons are absolutely incredible. And I would say that I have a strangely amicable and open relationship with my patrons. Like, we have had 2 patron gaming weekends now.
Oh, very cool.
Where I hosted one here in the Chicago area, we got an Airbnb, and a bunch of the patrons came, and we just gamed all weekend long, and it was awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that was D&D with Dads. And Carafa came and recorded that session at the Airbnb. So it was kind of surreal, because these are guys that I'd been playing games with and running games for online.
Yeah.
For several years. And it was the first time we met in person, and it was like we'd known each other for years.
My gosh.
Yeah,
that's
it was
incredible.
Awesome. And then we did it again last January of 2024 in Florida. We met up in Florida, and a couple, most of the same guys that came to Chicago were there, and then a couple new guys were there. So that was another great meetup. So
it's getting bigger and bigger every year, Bill. When's Bill Allan Con coming up?
We talked about that. The patrons are awesome.
Yeah, we'll put a link to the Patreon in the description of the video for sure.
Yeah, it's just patreon.com/Bill Allan World. But
love it.
But to go back to the exclusive.
The exclusive.
Okay. So I told you about how I ran this test session of Castles and Crusades, and the kids liked it. I talked to the kids and I said, what would you guys think about doing season 6 of D&D with high school students, but instead of D&D, we run Castles and Crusades? And they were like, yes, all in.
Holy cow.
So we got into the studio and we made characters. We started playing, and we recorded 5 sessions, session 0 and 5 sessions.
Oh, wow.
This is back in early 2024.
Okay.
So like, I guess it would have been January and February of 2024, and slightly into March. It might not have even gone into March. We recorded these sessions. Everything was going really well. Then I had a absolutely terrible thing that happened in my personal life, which was divorce. And that basically put everything on my life on hold for the majority of 2024. The beginning of this school year, one of my goals was I wanted to pick up where we left off as best as we could. And the changes that one makes in their lives when, divorce happens is sometimes limits what you're able to do, changes your timelines for everything. So I've had to learn to live life differently. And I'm in a much better place than I was, as one might imagine. But it was hard to kind of get back into the swing of things. And one of my goals was, I told Carafa this, I said, I want to shoot the intro for the show before we play another game. I had this idea to make an intro that was a live action idea. And where it came, I showed Carafa the intro to the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, where they get on the roller coaster.
Yes.
And it transports them into the D&D world, right?
Yes.
So I showed this to Carafa. I was like, I want to make like an homage. I don't want to like rip that off, but I want to make like an homage to that, right? Using the kids somehow going from reality into the fantasy world. And we talked about it. I kind of planned it out. Then I talked to the kids about it, and I pitched it to the kids, and they're like, hell yes, let's go, right? Like they were so excited. So I sat down with them. We kind of wrote up a treatment, a little summary of what we wanted to do. Then we, believe it or not, spent weeks doing costuming. And I brought in...
Those are cosplay level.
Right. So Fendrick is really good with cosplay and costuming stuff. And then I have another staff member, a part-timer, who, like Carafa, is also an alum of the program.
Mm-hmm.
And her name is Brittany, and she's also like a great costumer. So Brittany basically came in and worked with Fendrick, and they kind of did the costuming and propping for everyone. Most of the costume stuff is Brittany's, but it's a hodgepodge. Like Fendrick brought in some stuff, I brought in some stuff. Couple of the other kids, Harris and Connor, had a few things, but we basically put together the costuming. And then, it was like, all right, when are we going to do this? When are we going to do this? And things were busy, and I was like, if we don't do this, it's going to snow. Like, this is, it was fall in Chicago, so like, we need to do this. So I finally booked a weekend where I could get everyone, crew and cast, together to do this.
Yep.
We met up at the school. We shot the library sequence first. I had Carafa on one camera and another one of my alums and part-timers, Jack, on the other camera. I had Britt on costuming and Graham as an assistant. I had Danny, another alum. Basically, all the part-timers that work for me are also alumni. So it was a real family endeavor,
Mm-hmm.
We shot the library thing. Then we came back to the studio. Everybody changed in their costumes. Then we drove out to the forest preserve and found these locations, shot all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in all, it might have been one of the fastest things that I ever directed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that is because my brain had time to simmer on this concept for so long that I knew what I wanted to do. I had an awesome crew, and my crew knows me. So we were in sync,
Mm-hmm.
And I think seriously, like, we shot that entire thing in 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
Which is absurdly fast for people who know what film production is like.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, we edited, color corrected, all that stuff, put most of it together within a few days. And that is when I was like, all right, now we're coming back. This is real. Like, this is happening,
Well, Bill, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you for being vulnerable and open and sharing some of those aspects of your personal life. We really appreciate it here, and just showing how people can kind of persevere through those kind of things, and using things like Castles and Crusades and your passions to help you work through those tough times in life.
Yeah.
It must have felt great, though, to kind of get back on the horse and not only get to do the production aspect that can kind of help process a lot of that stuff, but also to enter this world, which the thing I love also was this season where is this a homebrew world as well that you guys are playing?
Yes. So I started to create my original world in 1998.
Okay.
And actually, there's parts of that original world that go back to my childhood.
Oh, wow.
And I even found an old D&D folder with a map of one of the continents that I put together probably in 4th grade. Like, it's like colored pencils on graph paper. Like,
oh, yes.
So it started as a world, actually, that 2 friends of mine and I wanted to create for a MUD. And for those who don't know, MUDs are
oh my gosh,
multi-user dungeons. So before graphical interfaces
like Warcraft,
MMOs,
like World of Warcraft.
This is text based. So before graphics were good enough to do massively multiplayer online games, you had MUDs, which were multi-user dungeons, and they were coded by really smart dudes, a lot of whom I went to college with, who were computer science majors and programmers. And I had been playing MUDs in college in the 90s. And we were really into MUDs, and we just didn't like how a lot of MUDs were clones of original MUDs. So we wanted to create like our own original world that would be different from all the other MUDs. So we started the world building on it before we started coding.
And Bill, MUDs are like, for people that might not be, it's like a line, like a terminal on a computer where you like go north, attack goblin. And it would tell you like different things that are happening. Like you see the castle in the distance and the wispy fog. And then it'd say like what items are there that you could interact with or other.
It was all text based.
Yeah.
But but the fun of MUDs was it was like for people my age, it was like playing D&D online without face-to-face, without voice, just all text. No
you could
graphics,
really get into
text.
It was all you could really get into it.
Oh, there were factions. I mean, there were clans. Like it was huge. So we were really into MUDs at the time, and we wanted to build this world for MUDs, and we started world building. And it was basically me and my friend Nick and my friend Chuck. Nick and Chuck were computer dudes, and I was a gaming person. We were all gamers, but within a few weeks or maybe a couple months, Chuck and Nick had kind of dipped. We're still friends, but like they weren't into it as much as I was, and I kept world building with it. So I liked what we started, and I was like, all right, even if we don't use this for a MUD, I'm like, this could be a cool world for D&D and for games, right?
Yep.
So I continued, and over the years, I just kept going and going and going and going and going. It's big. It's
so
I
impressive.
dream of publishing it someday, but it's big.
That's what I was just about to ask. When is it coming out? Number one. Okay, but we're dreaming of it. But I got to say, it's so impressive, the mastery you have over it, because there's an instance here during this first what you're talking about, the gods that are in the area.
Yes.
In your world, and the way that you just rattled off like 6 or 7 like good aligned gods was like, oh, this guy, this is what behind the screen's all about. Like to figure out like where this was and how you. So this is really just time tested. You've been thinking about this for 30 years now, and this has been always living, and that's why they're on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah, and I mean, to be clear, I started running stuff in the early 2000s with like 3rd edition D&D in my world. I've run 3rd edition D&D in my world. I've run 5th edition D&D in my world. I've run Pathfinder 1st edition in my world. I've run Shadow Dark in my world. I've run Lamentations of the Flame Princess in my world, Castles and Crusades in my world. And part of the reason why I wanted to do that was to make sure that what I built was system agnostic, so that it didn't matter what fantasy RPG you were playing, what mechanics you were using, you could play that in the original world of Cacapulon. And I think the way that I build that world is, I don't know for sure because I haven't interviewed him, but I would think that the way that Ed Greenwood created the Forgotten Realms is kind of how I've approached creating Cacapulon. It's a little bit macro, a little bit micro. Sometimes I'll have an idea for just one little place, and I'll flesh out that really, like the port city of O'Shale, which is on the continent of Arakazine in the kingdom of Imphis. That's the only port city that I really fleshed out. And I'm like, good Lord, I could run 20 years of adventures just with this. It's basically my Waterdeep, right? Like there's so much to do there. And I'm like, I have 50 other port cities on this one continent to flesh out, so it gets a little overwhelming sometimes. But then there are times where I'll get an idea and I'll do a whole continent with less micro and more macro.
Well, the thing I love about the example you just gave, Bill, of the port city was you listed 3 names. And I got to tell you, for me, when I'm looking at worlds, like we can pronounce, like they're fun names. Like they're fun names that are fun to say. And they're easier to, like, right now I'm running something with my kids and everything's in like Gaelic. And I'm like, I can't pronounce any of this stuff. There's extra G's and Y's. And I can't, it's like, I'm pulling my hair out. The thing I loved of just how fun the worlds are and the names are and the towns and the people that people are experiencing here with season 6, I just think is fantastic.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, I get into all of it. The religion stuff, the development of pantheons and divine entities and concepts, even the linguistic parts. Like I have pronunciation guides because I don't want to spoil things, but there's a certain link to the pronunciation of sounds and magic in my world.
Oh, hello.
As well as somatic elements. So like the motion that you make with your hands can impact a spell.
Bill, I was already in love. Come on, man. Now it's like when we gotta put a ring on this one. Holy cow. So, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, but for the kids, it's cool, I think, because it's the unknown, it's the new, right? Like,
Yep.
they don't know this world because, I mean, Harris played in season 5, but the character Harris played and all the characters that were in season 5, that took place on a completely different continent in my world.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's playing a character on Arrakazine. Harris as a player doesn't know anything about Arrakazine.
Mm-hmm.
Neither do any of those characters. They only know what their characters would know, which I gave them background knowledge so that they would at least know what their characters would know.
Yeah. I love where we're going with this conversation, Bill, because it's real. We're starting to kind of get into the nitty gritty of what behind the screen is all about, of castle keeping guides and tips and tricks and kind of process around it. I would love to know. So you've kind of shared with us that you are in the profession of teaching. What transferable skills do you think there are between teaching and castle keeping, and where have you been able to really kind of synergize?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So many. And I mean, I was fortunate enough to be interviewed by Greg Tito and Shelley Mazanoble from Wizards of the Coast on their podcast, Dragon Talk.
Oh, wow.
And I talked about this a bit and on other podcasts too. But
yeah, I
mean, role-playing games, I'm an evangelist when it comes to the benefit of role-playing games for people. It has had such a profound effect on me, and I know it's had such a profound effect on so many people who've shared their testimonials with me, right? Like, I mean, for starters, I think role-playing games instill an interest in learning more, just period.
Yep.
Regardless of topic or subject, just an interest in learning more, because it fosters curiosity, right? I think role-playing games can encourage people to be more creative or to take risks with being creative and trying new things. For me personally, it encouraged a love of reading, of writing, of history, of mythology, of religion, of language, of geography and maps and cartography and science and astronomy. Just anytime I would have an interest in something, it was usually nurtured through a game, right? Wow. Here's a honest to God, here's one there's another exclusive. When I was in 6th grade, my friend Pete and Jesse and I had a sleepover at Jesse's house, and Jesse's older brother ran a game of D&D for us. And the only thing that happened was we were supposed to get this cart full of supplies from one village to another. Halfway through, there was a log that was across the road, and we couldn't get our cart across the road. We had to figure out how to move the log. And I swear to God, there was no combat. It took us an hour to figure out how to create a simple lever to wedge and roll the log so that we could get the cart through. I literally learned a principle of engineering in a game of D&D in 6th grade, and I've never forgotten that.
Wow.
You can't move something that's too heavy without leverage. We had to literally describe, there's no rolling of dice.
Yeah.
We as 6th grade boys had to tell Jesse's older brother, who was probably high, I don't know, but like had to tell him how we wanted to move this thing. We had to figure out like how to do leverage. And it was one of the most rewarding successes, and it didn't involve any combat. It didn't involve any rolling of dice.
Wow.
And Pete is still alive. He's still one of my best friends, and I don't know if he'd even remember that, but he was there. So
he's looking around today, and he's looking for the log, and he's going to be like, I know how to handle logs.
Yes, because we figured out leverage. Yeah,
that's right.
And I mean, so yeah, I would think there are so many transferable skills, academic skills, critical thinking skills, investigating and questioning. Always, I'm constantly questioning and investigating everything because games taught me to do that, right?
Yeah.
And critical thinking is so important. Problem solving, working as a team building. Like when you're in an adventuring party in any game, you are in a team, you're collaborating, you're creatively problem solving sometimes. Sometimes you're using logic. Sometimes it's expressiveness.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my kids in the D&D club, they play the game, but while they're playing the game, they're drawing scenes
Like
of
what's
what they're
actually happening.
doing.
Yeah. That's
Or
awesome.
they're doing character portraits, or they're doing maps. They love world building. They'll just make maps, thousands of maps for no reason. They're never going to be enough lifetimes to run that many games, but they just make maps all the time.
What a great way for them to kind of fire on all cylinders as far as the audio learner, the visual learner, the learner that speaks.
And I have every kid you could imagine in the D&D club, right? Because not just D&D, role-playing games.
Sure.
Despite what people might say or think or try to spread, communities of role-playing games have always been the most inclusive.
Yes.
And if you ever doubt that, please email me and I'll send you pictures of our club. In that club, you will see every kid from a huge high school. There are 4,000 kids in this high school.
Mm-hmm.
And you will see every archetype and faction represented.
Yep.
I have the theater kids. I have the tech nerds. I have the kids on the spectrum. I have jocks and athletes. I have creative art kids. I have the whole gamut.
Yep.
I have the kids who just don't fit in anywhere. I have the kids that are on every letter of the alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
And I love them all. And in that club setting, they all get along and they all cooperate. They all collaborate.
Oh.
And that's real. That's real inclusivity and real belonging. It's not forced.
Right.
I don't make those rules. It just happens.
Yes.
The only rules that I have in our club are take a shower and don't be a jerk to someone else. Be cool.
Universal rules, universal constants.
That's
outside
right.
of the group.
Those are my convention rules too.
That's right.
Take a shower, brush your teeth.
That's right.
And don't be a jerk to anyone, and you'll get along just fine. So really, like, I love gaming. I love the soft skills and hard skills.
Yep.
Math. I'm not great with math, but quick calculations, I'm really good at.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because games.
Yep.
And I love the soft skills and hard skills. They're very transferable in terms of even just performance and being comfortable with talking with people. That's role playing.
Yep.
Public speaking.
Yes.
I was a theater kid for a while when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I've always felt comfortable on stage. As a teacher, my role playing skills are immensely valuable.
Wow.
Empathy. I am able to connect with my students on a real level.
Mm-hmm.
But they're having struggles. Like, I am able to be there with them, for them. And I'll, anybody who knows me knows that I'll bend over backwards for my kids and do whatever I can for them. And, I think role-playing games teach so many valuable skills, and they're so transferable to so many different careers. But for me as a teacher, oh my gosh, so much of what I'm able to do in terms of connecting with kids and inspiring passion or igniting passion in kids is absolutely something that I derive from my experience with role-playing games.
Well, and it's super contagious around this table in particular for season 6. I mean, to see everybody, the eye contact that's being made, the body language, the verbal cues, the nonverbal cues, everything that's happening at the table is fantastic. And what I love, what you just talked about, was there's a lot of core concepts and a lot of feelings and emotion. And I'd love to talk about, those are considered tools in a way. I'd love to know here. We'll actually stop it on this shot right here. I'd love to know the tools. Maybe we talk in a little more literal sense now, the tools that you're using behind the screen. Because so you are using the Castle Keeper screen here for Castles and Crusades to set up.
Yeah.
It's got some great charts on it, but I also noticed we've got I think we might be Coke Zero brothers, by the way.
Yes.
Coke Zero is my jam.
Yeah.
But you also, so talk to me about what you got going on behind the screen here, Bill.
Okay, so honestly, and I've said this before, it's also well documented on videos. And if you watch other seasons of D&D with high school students, you'll see that I often don't use a screen. And I have kind of mixed feelings about screens in general. I even made a video about screens.
Oh,
Screens can be very helpful.
yes.
They could have resources. I don't have anything against screens per se, but I don't always feel like I need to use them, because sometimes I feel like that screen is a wall that creates separation between me and the players. And I want my table to be as immersive and connected as possible. I'm a real big proponent of eye contact. Like,
Yes.
to me, it's important that we're at the table. We're in this. We are immersed.
Yeah.
You're a player. You're playing that character,
Bill, what's your cell phone policy at the table?
I prefer to not have technology. Now, that said,
Yeah.
you'll notice that behind my screen is a laptop. Part of the reason why in some episodes of some shows I have the laptop is because I'm taking notes on a Google Doc for the campaign. I'm 52 now, and I don't remember things as well as I used to.
Yeah.
So it's important for me to take notes on what happens in the session for continuity in the campaign. And I do take paper notes still, but I feel like the ease of having that Google Doc and being able to connect to it wherever I am.
Yeah.
Versus a paper, journal sometimes helps.
I would imagine too, the Google Doc allows for greater collaboration, especially in a show setting, where if you guys are doing stuff like that.
Yes. So I have Google Docs for that include, player resources, but then I also have like my DM notes, which is not shared with the player. So, but in general, if I was going to compare the usefulness of screens, I think a screen that has resources that I want to refer to without having to look them up is crucial. And I think Castles and Crusades screen is one of the best I've ever used. And there's an example, I don't know if it's this episode, but definitely this season, in season 6, there's an example where the group is under a kind of a time crunch to get from one point to another. And I'm looking at the map and trying to calculate how their distance. And right on the screen, I see the land travel, the rates of travel by horse, right? So I'm like, yes, for the win, Castles and Crusades, like it was right there. So, that kind of stuff is valuable. It's useful. I'll have some dice. Sometimes I'll have minis behind the screen if there's an encounter that I know might be coming up, just to have them ready so I don't have to go digging through the box. But a lot of times I don't even use a screen, because I don't want to have any interruption of the space connecting the players with me at the table.
Yeah. Well, I love that insight. Thanks, Bill, for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be definitely hard. Do you think AI is going to change anything when it comes to notes or session recaps or anything?
I think it can make it more narrative. So certainly if you're recording a session and you have that AI capability to transcribe, voice to text.
Yeah.
I think that could save a lot of time. But I also think, just like in school, right? You don't write down every single word that your teacher is saying during a lecture.
Right.
You write down the highlights. And I think game notes should not be verbatim. It doesn't have to be every single word. It should be the highlights.
Right.
I think one of the things that's fun for me every season is seeing who at the table takes notes and who doesn't. I'm a big lore GM. Like, I drop a lot of lore, but I don't do it I don't tell them when I'm dropping lore.
Right.
So if they don't write it down, I might let them make a intelligence check to see if their character remembers, but sometimes I won't, and then that's how they learn. Like, you have to take notes.
Yep.
In a campaign, like if it's a one shot, that's one thing. But like if you're running a campaign, you should take notes. And I tell the players that sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. The ones who do take notes end up yielding a lot of valuable information when the time comes.
And I guess there is almost a two-way communication that happens with notes as well, because when they tell you what they're writing down, what's important to them as a player too, like what they're gleaning as like, oh, I thought this was important enough for me to write down.
Yeah. Like when when they write down the name of some NPC that I have no intention of being
Yeah.
important at all.
Like, oh,
They-
I'm gonna bring him back, you know?
Yeah. Let's follow up on Jeff the stable boy. Okay, you know.
Yeah, yes. I have a whole thing planned for Jeff. That's great. You bring him up.
Yeah. It's funny when we talk about planning, and you know, I will say that behind the curtain, I don't prep the way that normal DMs do.
Yes. Well, this is a hot topic, right? Because there's fly by the seat of your pants and improv, and there's also plan everything out to the nth detail,
right?
Versus, and then other people use the word kind of railroad campaigns. I mean,
right.
how would you describe here season 6? Because you were talking about alluding to your prep.
Well, I'll tell you what every season is. Every season is the same process for me.
Mm-hmm.
I find out what the players want to do as players.
Yep.
Before we even make characters, like what kind of vibe do you want?
Yeah.
I figure out where and when is the best setting for that. And the when is also important. That's something that a lot of people don't think of. They think that, like, well, the Forgotten Realms exists only in the present. No, it doesn't. You can play at any point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So in my world, it's the where and the when, because that matters. What they want to do, where and when that would best be facilitated. They make characters. I know what's going on in that location and at that time in my world. I throw out a few seeds for potential stories, but I don't plan anything.
Oh, wow.
All I do is react to what they choose to do.
Yes.
In the world, in that location, at that time, and what would reasonably happen. And then we build a story together.
And it's magic, Bill. It's magic.
It is. It's magic for me.
Yep.
It's magic for me, Johnny. Like, I don't, when it comes together, oh my God, there's no better feeling than when something comes together that nobody could have possibly planned. It is the ultimate taste of fate, right?
Yes.
Like it is fantastic.
It's electric. It's really forgive the pun, but it's the dragon we're chasing all the time. Like, once that happens, you feel it, and the whole table feels it. And the thing I love about how you approach it is that the castle keeper is also included in on that feeling, because they're like, oh wow, I didn't even plan this,
Right. Well, I'm going to give you an example, and I'm not going to screen share because it shows too much of the other things, and I don't want to have spoilers.
Yes.
But this is my notes for season 6. Okay.
Yeah, careful. I haven't finished the season yet, Bill.
No, one sentence. That's it.
All right.
The campaign is set in the year 830 AK, 300 years after the fall of Nezrak. That's it. That was how all of this season started. Now, we are 5 episodes plus a session 0 deep. And I'm at 3/4 of one page on a Google Doc for my notes for this campaign. That's it. That's all I have.
I love it.
Because I don't, and here's the thing, I think that this is a choice that every game master has to make individually. Because if you're new, you might need to plan more stuff out, and that's okay.
Yep.
I've given tips for people, and I would continue to give those tips, that don't overplan, don't underplan.
Yes.
Plan just enough. In other words, pick a spot, know that area, know what's going on in that area. Think of some factions, think of some good guys, think of some bad guys, think of a few adventures that could happen in that area, but don't plan out too much more than that. Let the players choose what they want to do. And then you plan around their choices.
Yes.
For me, that's easy because I've been doing this for 46 years.
Right.
So,
well, it's become easy because of the fact that you've done it so many times. And I think that's it. You started off just where everybody else started off.
It's
plan, underplan, overplan. What do I do? And through going through it and running the games, that's where you found this sweet spot.
It's funny because I've said this often. I don't really like to run modules. I don't really like to run adventures written by other people because for whatever reason, my brain works better with the improvisational and reactive style that I have, because I've been doing it so long.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to run other people's adventures. But I wanted to do that with my series, The Lamenters, which is it's a Lamentations of the Flame Princess series that I do. I wanted to integrate some of the Lamentations adventures because I think they're really creative. When we talk about indie companies or small gaming companies, Lamentations is really cool. It's definitely more adult for more adult gamers, but it's really very different from a lot of other games. It was really hard for me to integrate a couple of those adventures into my world. I had to read and reread and then make notes because they weren't written in a way that was intuitive for me. And I'm not saying that as a judgment against them or for them.
Right.
It was just challenging for me. So I think every game master is different. How they approach planning and running a game has to be different. For me, the key is it's all about what not just me, but other people have called the living world. I have a living world. I know what's going on in my world in different places and at different times, but I keep it open and loose to be reactive. So it's literally impossible for me to run a scripted game, or a railroaded game, because I don't plan. I can't railroad something if there's no plan.
That's right. That's right.
So, what happens is what happens. And to a point, for like the people who are loyal to my channel and know, season 4, the Medusas and the Vixens came together. That season ended in tears. I literally had high school kids in tears because of how that season ended. They didn't like how that season ended. I felt like crap. I felt terrible. Like a dad who had failed on Christmas. Like I felt really bad. But I had to be true to what would have happened in the game. And what happened in the game wasn't pleasant. It wasn't a happy outcome. The bad guys won. Basically, the bad guys won. But life goes on. And that, I loved those kids. They were phenomenal and authentic. And the tears that they were crying as players were so heartfelt because they had invested so much into those characters and into that campaign.
I think, Bill,
but I had to keep it real, man. And that was an example where I didn't plan that. Well, it could have gone in a lot of different ways, but it went the way that it was going because of the series of actions and decisions that had happened throughout the whole campaign.
Exactly. And I think the thing I love that you're talking about here is the idea of plot armor, or the idea of like failure being not fun. And I get that there can be some like, oh shoot, but I think on retrospect, if you can free yourself from the idea that failing isn't fun, like that a 1 can be just as fun as a 20.
Yes.
That's when I feel like players can really like character death is not you aren't dying. It's this other, like to be able to separate the two and be able to kind of give yourself permission to have fun when you're failing, I guess, is the idea around some of that stuff.
Johnny, that is such a crucial philosophy that I feel like the whole gaming community, everybody needs to understand that, because look, I have had characters who I loved, who I connected with, who I could tell you everything about them, even though I haven't played that character in 30 years. They were a part of me, right?
Yes.
I have had close feelings with characters in so many games, right? That just they're part of the legend of who I am, and I am part of them, all of that. But I have also had exponentially more characters die than live. And some of those characters' deaths were dumb and fun and hilarious. And some of them were tragic and sad. And it's okay. And I tell this to the kids in the club.
Yes.
It's okay for your character to die. You could, if you die the good death, if your character dies, heroically saving someone else, or even if it's just a stupid death, it's okay. You can just make another character.
Yes.
And to a point too, there is nothing that can't be killed in my original world. And that includes the gods. So when I tell players in my original games that they can be killed, I also tell them, but anyone else can be killed.
Yep.
The NPCs can be killed. My favorite villains can be killed. Even the gods can be killed.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important to the reality that I've established, the paradigms that I've established for my original world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happened. I mean, major NPCs have died, and major things have happened in games that became canon in my world.
Wow.
Because I wanted that to be, I guess, the reward.
Right.
The reward for playing in a campaign in my world is that the things that you do have a real impact on the history. Just like, Gary Gygax's home games and Dave Arneson's home games, those PCs, those player characters created spells that are still in the game today. I have events that have happened in my games that have become canon, that have become part of the history of the world.
Wow.
That were completely player driven. And I love that. I love it. Even when it was a mistake, I love it.
Well, and there it is, finding the good in the bad, could be, but also giving yourself permission, which is it's again, another learned skill, especially this day and age when it's just like, hey, I got blah, 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 blah. It's like we can all work together to let things not affect us in ways that would be negative. But so that's kind of a fun peek behind the screen here. Bill, do you have a little bit more time? I know we didn't talk about exactly how much time we were going to do this for. I'm enjoying every second of it.
No, man, I do. It's cool. I probably got another 20 minutes.
All right, perfect. Well, for these last 20 minutes, I would love to maybe we unmute a little bit of this play. There's two. I should have timestamped these because I wanted to talk to you about it. But there's two spots in particular I wanted to get your insight on. One is with the cart that happens here. So hopefully not gonna be too crazy spoilery, but we'll see if I can find it here. Let's see where we are in this playthrough.
She's dead.
Okay. Interesting information to tell people on the first day you know them.
It is a simple question.
Okay.
As you guys are going along with Brandon, you see some buildings, clusters of buildings up ahead.
Perfect. So we've actually passed it already. So they run into, is it Brandon on the road here for the season 1? And they who's a merchant, right, with a broken down cart, I think. Is that what it is?
Yeah. So that story I told you about 6th grade?
Is that the one? Is that the one?
I basically wanted to give them a similar thing. I wanted to give it the feel to make them suspicious. Like, could this be a trap? Could this be an ambush? Could it be a setup? When really it was just literally a guy with a flat tire. Like it was the old, like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
This is kind of testing the moral boundaries, I guess, too. Because in previous seasons of the game, it went from like, yeah, we're heroes to we are murder hobos. Like, and the fans of the channel love watching this stuff because I think a lot of them know that it's authentic and it's not predictable. You don't know what these kids are going to do.
Yeah.
It's also the nostalgia because people watching it also remember, like, oh my God, I remember when I was in high school or college, my campaigns were the same way and it was just off the rails,
It is so magic. I want to see if I can find it. I got to let me see if I can.
Okay, so as you guys make this encounter on the road.
Here we go.
You hear a call for help.
First, I got to pause real quick, Bill, and just big round of applause. Dude, the production values of all of your videos are 11 out of 10. Like, holy cow. I mean, your passion of video really shines through. The sound is amazing. The audio, or the audio is the sound, Johnny. The sound is amazing. The lighting's incredible. The cameras, like even the shots, they're just brilliant.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And up ahead, the road curves, and there's like some trees, so you can't quite see in like some underbrush. You can't quite see who's calling for help, but you hear like help! Is anyone out there? Please! Help!
You strangers, assist me, and I start running.
We don't even know.
I love these players. And you were telling me the funny thing is so before the show we were talking. I was like, who's the Norwegian kid or who's the Icelandic kid? Is he an exchange student?
Yeah, they So I should also mention, because I said their classes. So I explained to them that in the setting where they were, because I gave them some options. Their choices for what they wanted to play, what kind of game vibe and what themes, led me to run this in a Rakazine. And at the time that this is happening in a Rakazine, the only playable races are human ethnic groups. Okay, so I described the human ethnic groups that are on a Rakazine, and they each chose their path. Harris chose to make a Kronai. He wanted to make a northerner. So he kind of, came up with this concept for his character, and he's like this northerner who fled the north because his tribe was attacked by a white dragon, and he's headed south, and that's where he's met up with the rest of these guys.
Wow.
But he came up with the character concept and the appearance and the accent, right?
It adds a depth. You talk about diversity, like it adds a depth here where I'm like, and it's so good. Like as someone, like I honest to God thought he was a foreign exchange student. Like,
well, and I'm going to tell you, none of these 4 kids are theater kids.
No way.
No, I swear to God, none of them are in theater. Harris is like a really high academically performing student who, kind of is, as you would think, like he's good with technologies, smart kid, right? But not involved in theater. Lee, sitting right next to him, she is also not in theater. Just a normal kid. And then across the table, Connor is in marching band, and Fen is on the flags, the color guard.
Yep.
They're band nerds, but they're not in theater.
Oh my! I would have thought you plucked these guys from your elite improv troupe.
Like, these are all game kids, and that's what I was talking about earlier about those like social and soft skills.
Yep.
None of these kids are in theater. None of them are on speech team or anything. Like they're good at playing games because they have been playing games for all 4 years of high school. They were all 4 of these kids started with the D&D club freshman year, I'm pretty sure. So,
well, I thought it was pretty amazing too, Bill, because the thing that I noticed about the beginning of this episode was there's that initial, like, I'm sure it happened where it was like, okay, we're rolling, camera's rolling. And there's that initial first just nervous, there's a nervous air and the energy, and you could even tell with kind of like the giggles and the laughs and the what should I do and when do I go? And the thing I love is that as it keeps going, you see everybody start to spill into it, and
they forget about the cameras, they forget about the lights, and then we're at the table. And that's part of the reason, Johnny, why I do run games online for my patrons and for certain things, and I'll run games over Zoom. But honestly, there's just no better feeling than being in person at a table with the players and physical dice and physical paper character sheets.
Yes.
I feel like truly this Castles and Crusades campaign has recaptured that feeling.
Yes.
Because there's, in the D&D club, sadly, like 3/4 of the kids have their D&D 5e characters pulled up on their school Chromebooks or their phones on D&D Beyond instead of a paper copy. And I understand that. I don't dispute it. It's kind of like fighting an uphill battle with technology. It's going to happen. But with this campaign where we're playing at the table with physical dice and real character sheets, I think I love it, but the kids also genuinely love it. They love having books and character sheets.
Well, it fosters a true connection to the space and the people around you.
Yeah. Like
screens are great. But man, I'm telling you, once if you have never played like this before, you try it. And there's a nervousness that can happen, right, Bill? But I think the thing I wanted to say was you as the castle keeper here also get to help because you were kind of calm, cool, and collected, and you didn't you didn't call anybody out or tell anybody like, hey, stop that or blah, 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 blah. What you could do as a teacher or as a parent or wherever you're at in that journey, but you didn't do any of that. Like you let the players kind of get into their groove and you helped kind of conjure this world around them.
At my best, I feel like I accomplished that.
Yeah.
Although there are plenty of bloopers that, if you watch all the way to the credits, we throw bloopers in where sometimes I lose it. But I will also say that every season, when I pick the kids to play, there's no compulsion to play. None of these kids are like, I'm not their teacher and I control their grade. They're not forced to play a game. They're all, it's all voluntary because they want to, and they genuinely enjoy it. So, I mean, I think a lot of times when we're playing, we get so into it that they don't even think of me as their teacher anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just narrating what's going on in the world and providing them with challenges. And that's perfect. That's what it should be. And to be clear, sometimes in the D&D club, if there are tables where, a new DM is trying to run a table and they only have like 2 players, me or my assistant club advisor, Greg, will jump in on that table and we'll play.
Yep.
We'll play with a high school kid DMing for us. And it's awesome. Great because, it's I think encourages them. Yes, it's a reciprocal thing. It encourages the kids like, oh, wow. These 2 adult guys who are experienced have enjoyed playing in my game. Maybe I can do this, And that's what I run DMing workshops in the club to help kids learn how to DM.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun for me and for the players.
Well, let's see how you DM this situation here with the cart. Yeah. And then there's one other thing, the axe throwing. And then we could conclude after that because that axe throwing, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but here's the cart. Here, let's see what happens.
Yeah. Very pissed off, but follow anyways because I'm intrigued. Yeah, but I'm gonna run faster.
I love
that. Dominance.
Okay.
Generally.
So you guys start running up the road, and as you kind of come across where this road curves, there's like bushes and trees and undergrowth. You see a small cart. And it looks like there's like sacks of perhaps like crops or grain, fruit, something in bags on this cart. And you see like a pack mule that was pulling it. Uh-oh. But you see that one of the wheels is broken. Oh. And you see like a middle-aged man, and it looks like he was trying to fix the cart, and then the cart fell. So the cart has basically pinned his leg. And he's like screaming in pain. You see like blood on his leg from like where the cart like basically hit him, and he's yelling out, and he sees you guys, and he's like, "Oh, please help!"
I look for anybody else around.
I was gonna say, I'm like,
I love that. So the first thing is I look for anybody else around. Like, is this a trap? Is this an ambush? I think you just set this up so great, Bill.
Yeah, again, I knew that this was not a combat scenario.
Yeah. Right.
I felt like it was the kind of thing where I want them to, number one, I want to see what their like moral compass is. Like, are they going to stop and help this guy? Are they going to rob him? Whatever.
Yeah, because they could.
And then also to see like, and as you said, Connor, right away off camera, you hear him say like, I look to see if there's anyone else around.
Yep.
They're suspicious. So they're thinking critically. And that's, some people would be like, well, that's metagaming. Why would that character assume that there's an ambush? Well, everything is metagaming because you're a player playing a game. So I thought it was really kind of a very simple introductory thing to throw at them just to see where they were at on a couple different things.
I was super surprised at where they went with this. So here, let's see if we can finish some of it, or let's watch the next segment.
Yeah, lift the cart.
Yeah.
You look around, you don't see anyone.
Okay.
You look strong.
All right.
You're running up still. Okay, so you approach.
He's like, please get the cart. I'll lift.
Very well.
Okay.
We lift the cart?
Yeah, we're gonna lift the cart together.
I'll like try to help drag him out from under the cart.
Look at how well they immediately team build. This is a situation they were put in 30 seconds ago, and they are immediately finding ways to help each other out.
Yeah. When my kids were much younger, I ran D&D games for them. And initially it was just because they wanted to play with Daddy's toys, and Daddy's toys were very expensive dwarven forged terrain and miniatures. So I was like, well, if we're going to play with Daddy's toys, we're going to run, I'll run the game. So I simplified the rules.
Yep.
But I'll tell you, Johnny, like as that went on and I ran games for my kids, and then their friends would come and I would run games for these little kids. I'm talking like my youngest son was probably 4 and the older one was 7 or 8. And his friends would come over. So, from 4 to 7, 8 years old. And then maybe for a few years I did that. But it was remarkable to me, even at that age, how quickly those kids would team up to resolve problems.
Yes. I think it's our factory default settings, like inside of us morally, and then stuff happens where that kind of gets beat out of us. Let's see how they keep going. So right now we're on the right track here. Let's see what happens if things are about to go horribly wrong.
Okay. Go ahead and make a strength roll.
Both of us?
Sure.
Okay.
You're helping each other. You're lifting up the corner of the cart. Now, if this is a prime, remember to add your modifier plus your level, and that's what you add to your roll.
19.
19 is good. What did you have?
9.
Nina, somehow your strength is failing you. You just can't get a good grip. You're like, but
The foot's just falling.
yes, but Ragnvalder, you lift, and it's just enough for you to then slide him back away. You see now that like there's literally like his leg basically was broken, and he's like, thank you. I'm on my way to the festival. I was just the wheel was cracked, and I was trying to right it, and then all of a sudden the whole thing snapped, and you could see like the wreckage of one of the wooden wheels.
I can try to fix it.
He says,
Hold very still. And I'm going to lean over him, and I'm going to place a hand on his broken leg.
Oh no.
I'm just going to go. He starts like murmuring a prayer in a language that no one can understand, and I'm going to do first aid.
In Northlands or in Druidic?
In Druidic.
Okay.
And I'm going to do first aid.
Okay, what does that spell do?
It stops bleeding, and like does.
Which I love. So he's first aid. It's bleeding because you just, again, a minute ago said this dude's leg is bleeding. And he's like, ding, 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 first aid, bleeding, boom. And I love the flavor that he's adding, like, to all this.
Well, and just full disclosure, I didn't know what spells Harris or Connor had picked. They're the spells. I didn't know what spells they picked.
Oh, how fun is that?
I think it was cool for them as kids who grown up playing 5e, D&D 5e, to be able to tap into the Castles and Crusades spell lists.
Yes.
Because there are differences, and it's not. I think Castles and Crusades approaches magic a little more old school style.
Yes. Yeah.
The
absolutely.
value of your spells is pretty significant.
Yeah.
Like
huge.
You can't just blow through spells and I'm going to go sleep and then I get all my spells back.
Right.
Like it doesn't work that way. So there's an economy to using your spells, and the kids were very conservative about how they use their spells.
They are. In fact, and let's see where they go from here.
Let me read this full spell description if I can find it.
Superb. While you're doing that, you
first got a big point out how amazing is a castle keeper to keep the game going. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no record scratch, no pumping the brakes. I mean, like, the whole velocity at the table, the momentum of the table screeches to a halt. You saw the opportunity, Bill, and then you like volleyball almost.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I try to do that because it's a show, number one. But also in real life, when there's no video cameras, I try to do that because I hate stopping the game to look up rules.
Yep.
And why do I hate that? Because like many people my age, I grew up with it, and it used to kill the momentum of a game when somebody would be like, oh, I have to look up my spell. And I would be like, damn it, know your spell. Like the way that I play the game, even as a player, I hate that. If I'm not running a game, even as a player, it annoys me to be at a table with somebody, especially like veteran people. I'm a little more patient when it comes to beginners, right?
Sure,
but
absolutely.
Like, if I'm playing at a table with veterans, like know your crap. Like that's the number one tip.
Yep.
Know what you're playing, know how to do what you need to do, and don't slow the game down. Like, that's a huge pet peeve of mine. So I try to keep the game going, whether I'm player or the game master. And, you know, if that means that I have to smash cut over to somebody else while somebody's looking something up, so be it.
Dude, that is my all-time favorite because you use that smash cut. And that is, I think, if there is a skill, if anybody watching this behind the screen takes anything away from today, smash cut is probably the biggest tool you can add to your toolbox, especially because of the fact that, like, you know, the parties, we try to keep them together, but eventually everybody's going to be splitting the party. And so a smash cut as a tool basically takes where the action is right now. And Bill, you're throwing it to the next player.
Thanks.
So we'll see if we finish this up, and then it's just a quick little thing for the axe throwing here, and we'll get you out of here, Bill.
Does anyone have any kind of abilities with woodworking?
I do.
You do. See how
he read it in a book.
Yeah, we didn't even plan it. All right, so Victor, you see that if you took maybe 10 minutes, you could probably repair the wheel. It will have to travel very slowly, but you could probably repair this.
Look at him look at you, by the way, because he knows exactly what he's about to do, and he's looking at you like, oh, I got another plan.
Yeah, and I genuinely didn't know about that. Because again, I didn't know what spells he picked, so I'm thinking, like, they're going to take 10 minutes and repair the wheel, and maybe they'll talk with this NPC and have some banter, and then they'll go on their merry way, and the NPC will go. Not what happened.
Yeah, what happens next blew me away, and I had clamored. As soon as this happened, I got on Twitter, and I'm like, Bill, I have to talk to you about this series. And this was the moment when I was like, I have to talk to you. So here goes.
This wheel.
Give me 1 minute. I take the wheel, go to the other side of the cart, and kind of like start like looking as if I'm fiddling with it. And I cast mending.
Is that a thing you can do?
Yes.
How does it work?
I want back to say that he's cheating.
Wait.
You're cheating!
Smash cut back to you here.
Brilliant. So he's like, oh, let me look it up. Bill, without a moment of hesitation, smash cut to the other person who's looking up their stuff. But I love the look in your eyes where you're like, oh my gosh, this is a thing. Like you could do. Tell me how it works.
I mean, like I said, this is not scripted and it's not fake. I am literally learning this game.
Yep.
Because this is the first episode, right? So I would estimate that we filmed this maybe 2 weeks after I unboxed the game and ran that initial session.
Wow.
So I don't know the whole game. Like I don't know all the rules. I definitely don't know all the spells, but I know that we have books and we could play the game, and as long as we keep it going, it's going to work. So I'm just as pleasantly surprised as they are, you know, as the game master. It's great.
Yeah, that moment was exactly what we talked about, that electric, that buzz moment. Like it was really cool to see that happen just there. And that was just the taste, because what's about the payoff is about right around the corner.
So first aid magically bandages any wound, preventing further loss of hit points from bleeding. It prevents infection and cures 1d2, and I rolled 2.
Excellent.
The illusionist version of the spell acts in the same manner as the cleric and druid version. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not an illusionist because I'm not lame.
Oh, shots fired on illusionist.
That's Connor versus Harris right there. And both of them, they are the most experienced players. I think Connor and Harris both started playing D&D before high school, like in 6th or 7th grade.
Oh, wow.
Whereas, you know, Lee and Fenn didn't start playing until they were in high school. But Connor and Harris are definitely the most experienced players. So they'll take shots at each other, but they're also phenomenal role players.
Oh, absolutely. This was a total Spike the Football moment for me, because I mean, like, at this level, this is exactly like if you wanted to be good aligned and you wanted to help someone, like to me, there is no, like, this is the perfect play in football. Like this was an absolute Hail Mary touchdown. Like this is why I wanted to start behind the screen, was because like to look at this and analyze the play of what happened. And this couldn't have gone any more perfect for this character in this alignment.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
So you do this, and
I can talk to him.
as you're doing it in your uttering in Druidic, the man suddenly he stiffens momentarily, and he looks down at his leg, and he starts to like move his leg, almost in disbelief, and he says, well, "Thank you."
Your leg works.
Yes.
Can you stand? Does it move?
I believe I can. And he kind of gingerly gets up, and
I love the detail. Can you stand? Does it move? Like I was in that moment. Like here's this guy who essentially got a miraculous healing by this lay on hands druid, first aid spell reskinned. But like in this moment, like I was like, this is pure gold. This is pure everything I've ever wanted out of a game distilled down to this 5 seconds. And then the mend that happens right after this.
kind of winces a little bit, but he stands on his own.
Can I help him just like get up, just so he doesn't accidentally hurt himself?
Yeah, so you help him stand up, and he's just like, "Thank you so much." He's like, "Truly, I am blessed by your arrival, and had you not arrived, I fear that most of the travelers to the festival have already arrived. I might have sat out here all night. Who knows what would have befallen me."
Indeed.
He says, my name is Brandon. I thank you, truly. He says, "Are you as well going to Dusty Fief?"
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He says, then if you would travel with me.
I love that, Dusty Fief. Like it's the best name.
I will.
The interesting thing about in this setting, again, in this setting, at this time, in that setting, there is no arcane magic. Not only is there not arcane magic, but it's prohibited, culturally prohibited. Like a wizard would be considered to be blasphemous, heretic, devilry, witchcraft. Divine magic is a little different.
Yep.
And Harris is playing a druid, which falls into the sphere of divine magic. So it's a little more culturally accepted, but it's still rare.
Yeah.
It's still rare. So, the NPC's reaction to this is genuine surprise, because this is not common. I feel like a lot of times in 5e campaigns and actual plays that I've watched, magic is everywhere. There's magic shops, and people just, whoa, here, you need a healing. But it's more impactful in this game.
Yes.
Because of the setting and the timeline in which it's set, and that ability that Harris has. It's a first level spell, which some people might be like, oh, big deal, it's first aid. But in this setting, that's like a powerful thing. Like what he just did was meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think that becomes more evident as the campaign goes on. But this was almost like a sneak peek, like foreshadowing that.
Well, and the thing I love is the 1-2 combo of this first aid spell and then the mending spell right after that. And I want to zip through this as fast as I can.
I will be happy once I arrive to perhaps buy a round of drinks or a meal for all of you.
That sounds very, very nice.
I would appreciate a meal.
Much appreciated.
We'll help accompany you.
Thank you. So how does mending work, Victor?
When it comes to wooden objects, ceramic wooden objects with multiple bricks can be invisibly rejoined to be strong as new.
And it just happens?
Yeah.
Spell. All right, so you did this, and actually during the moment where they were helping Brandon and healing Brandon, and then Brandon introduced himself during that whole time, you were able to kind of do this quickly.
Yep. Cool. This is about what it's good. I look at him.
He says, "You are a woodworker of extraordinary magnitude."
I am.
Can I walk over to him?
Now make a charisma roll.
That was incredibly quick.
I'm gonna walk over to him and say that's cheating.
Quietly.
Quietly. That's cheating.
spectacular.
You make an intelligence check if you want to know that.
Wait.
18.
He's like you. Surely you are a carpenter of some great magnitude. For someone so young, You show prodigious skill.
That's it. I wanted to hear you say prodigious skill because it was just so perfect the way that turned out.
Yeah, I mean, he used magic, but he covered it.
Yes.
Played it off as if he was a carpenter.
Did it.
And had the mechanical, rolled the charisma roll to sell it, right? And that again is important because at this time, setting wise, an illusionist is
verboten.
Yeah, definitely verboten. Like, an illusionist would arguably be considered like a heretic. So, and would be burnt probably, or at the very least imprisoned. So the fact that he played that off the way that he did was meaningful in a narrative way as well.
I love it.
But it was cool. Yeah, it was fun. And again, I didn't check what spells they picked.
Yeah.
So it was cool. I just gave them an obstacle and had them figure out how they wanted to deal with it. And I kept myself open to seeing what would happen.
Yeah, these are the games that I love watching. Like, when you see these people who are genuinely like, I healed you, I fixed this thing, instead of like, I killed you and I took everything you had. Like, these are the things that give me hope behind the screen. And then I definitely wanted to feature that. There's one other little scene. Hopefully I can dial it in. If not, this is like the single best thing. This is my personal takeaway that I'm going to take away, but it was the axe throwing that you set up. To me, is the most brilliant mechanism of all time for anybody who's playing RPGs for the first time. And hopefully I can find it here.
I'm thinking one of the wolf ones that you have.
They're buying trinket.
Not everywhere.
Okay.
Calm
down.
But I haven't gone full-blown Cthulhu yet.
Okay.
It's like the bandits that they were talking about.
Maybe?
What? Describe your vision.
Okay, so there's a great vision that happened too, which that's a whole other podcast, Bill. We got to bring you on for this because this vision was also just like, I'd love to talk to you more about that too. So I probably won't. Next time I'm going to come armed with facts. All right, I'm going to have timestamps and we'll look at it. But at the sake of time and brevity here, and I'll kind of just let this play in the background. You set up this wonderful scene where it's like a fair and there was an axe throwing booth.
Yes.
And it was basically like, hey, pay a couple copper even or some silver, and you get to throw axes. Talk to me about what your goal was around that, and I'd love to see if what I thought you were doing, if that matches up.
Okay. So just the setting, like setting wise. I've grown up going up to Wisconsin every summer to the Renaissance Fair. And I love the Ren Fairs. I've taken my kids grow up, going there. I still go. Several of these kids have gone, and other D&D club kids have gone. And it's fun. You eat food, you go shopping, you throw axes, you shoot bows, you go to a joust. There's all sorts of entertainment. So I think part of this concept for the festival in Dusty Fief was that they were going to a fair, and there would be things like that. The other thing is I wanted to see if they would engage with any of these skill tests, right? So like they could have done axe throwing, they could have done some archery, they could have done wrestling. There was all these different kind of feats of skills, or the rope climbing thing. This is the one that they choose to engage in, and basically it was a way for me to plant an adventure seed, a possible thing that they could do. And that possible thing was, you have this festival at a village that's pretty rural, and there's been a recent problem with bandits, right? And that isn't too far off from real life. A lot of times when people go to concerts or big sporting events, they come back to their car in the parking lot and somebody broke into their car, right?
Yep.
So my thought was, if you have this kind of medieval fantasy setting, if all these people are going to this festival, maybe there'd be some desperate folks who are trying to take advantage of all these people.
Yeah.
And so, the mayor, the magistrate is looking for some backup, looking for some, militia. And the militia didn't come. He sent word asking the local lord, Merton's Keep, hey, could you send some militia? It didn't come. So now he's looking for some people to go find out, like, hey, what the heck? Like, are we going to get this militia, this reinforcement or not? So he sees these youngins throwing axes pretty well. They look pretty hardy. And that leads to an adventure seed. Which, whether they do that or not is up to them. I'm not going to railroad them. I'm not going to say, like, you have to do this mission.
Right.
But, the guy's willing to broker a deal and see if they're interested in doing it. If they don't take that bait, what would I have done? I would have had something else for them to do.
Right. Exactly.
But then they wouldn't have known what the threat was that was coming. Because again, a living world means it's that things are happening all around that the players don't know about, that some of the NPCs don't know about, that things are happening, things are in motion. If the players don't engage with those things, it doesn't mean that they just freeze. Those things are then going to happen. If the players do engage with those things, it changes the trajectory. So I chose to make that an entertainment of throwing axes, but also an opportunity for the magistrate to see, like, oh, these people might be able to handle themselves out on the road. They might be good representatives to send to Merton's Keep to find out what's going on with our militia.
Yeah, to me, Bill, you stuck the landing. It was not only a delivery mechanism for the kind of adventure seeds, but to me, the real, especially for this group and for where they are in their journey, and this is what the thing I'm going to use in every single game going forward, you basically made a way that people could just roll dice, like a ton of dice, like a ridiculous amount of dice based on with just spending a little bit of copper. Like, it was just so cool because it was just like, oh, I'll buy 6 throws. And I'm like, dude, that's like 6 dice rolls per person. And everybody just gets to we get to have a dice party for a minute.
Yep.
Like
well, and I think that, there's no combat.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of combat. I mean, it's one of the cornerstones of most role-playing games, but I'm not going to push combat. If combat happens, it happens because of choices.
Right.
But there's very few scenarios that give no choice other than fight.
Right.
Because you can always run.
Yep.
Sometimes you can negotiate your way out of combat. Sometimes you could avoid combat by stealth or other, mechanisms. I mean, combat's great, but I feel like, sometimes you can have this adventure that doesn't even have combat.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it was just great to be able to roll dice and just kind of get that feeling of rolling low, rolling high. What does it mean? And then also it was in a way, the consequences weren't severe. Like, the worst thing that would happen is you don't hit the target versus, oh my gosh, a freaking owl bear's coming at me and gonna rip my face off if I don't down this thing in time. So I just thought it's what I wanted to end on today as just a really great cherry on top of just how behind the screen, there's a bunch of tools, tips, and tricks of what you've been doing and what you've been doing so well here at the beginning of this season 6. Bill, we're so excited to maybe talk to you more about how things go. Man, I'll tell you, there's so much I want to talk to you for even episode 2 that I to schedule some more time with you later on because there's some beautiful stuff there that I just think you really leaned into the strengths of tabletop role playing, and would love to talk to you about more of that later. But just wanted to say thanks so much for spending an enormous amount of time with me today, right around the holidays, and just thank you so much for giving us a little peek behind the screen.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for having me. And I would just say that to any prospective game masters, regardless of what game you're running, it's not impossible. Anyone can do this. It does take practice, obviously. It takes a little work. You need to know the basics of whatever game system you're running. And but really, honestly, so much of a good game just comes down to choices. All you're doing is, you don't have to write a whole script. You don't have to create a whole adventure that is, A to B to C to D. It doesn't have to be linear. You just have to plant some seeds for possible things, and then listen to the choices that the players are making and react to those choices. And you're going to screw up, and that's okay. But there's a incredible feeling of reward when something happens at your game table that the players are into, that you're into, and things come together. It's a magical feeling, and it's a great thing for anyone. So if you like playing role-playing games and you've always wondered, wow, I wonder what it would be like to be a game master, just jump into the deep end and give it a try. And know that it's okay if you screw something up. It's okay if it doesn't go great. Just keep working on it, and it's a really rewarding thing.
I love it, Bill. Thank you so much. People can find you at Bill Allan World on YouTube. You have a Patreon as well, Bill Allan World on Patreon. I believe you've got an X account as well. Is that just Bill Allan for X?
Yeah, it's either Bill Allan World or the Bill Allan on socials. But yeah, it's always my name, basically.
Fantastic. Well, definitely some causes worth supporting here for you. And thank you so much for your support today, Bill, and everybody else. Thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your day and roll high.